I'm sure you all remember Microsoft in the early 2010s. Like they were in this weird phase with the Xbox where they were obsessed with the idea of turning it into a multimedia box. I feel like Quantum Break kinda had the same energy. It was an ambitious gamble by Remedy to fuse a third-person action game with a live-action TV show. Not gonna lie, at the time, people didn't really know what to make of it. It was so foreign, so out of left field that a lot of folks just completely dismissed it. But here's the thing, and the main reason I'm making this video right now. I genuinely believe it's one of the most underrated games of its generation. Like, seriously underrated. Especially when you look at what Remedy has done since then, like with Control and Alan Wake 2, you start to realize that Quantum Break was the essential stepping stone. It was a messy prototype for everything that came after it. It's the forgotten middle child of the Remedy family, mostly because Microsoft still owns the IP, but that's a story for later. For now, I'm just gonna take a look at the good, the bad, and everything in between. Okay, let's start with the premise. And no, I'm not gonna spoil any major twists or the ending here, cause if you haven't played it, the narrative is honestly the biggest reason to pick it up today. The setup goes a little something like this. You play as Jack Joyce, just a regular guy who gets called back to his hometown by his old friend Paul Serene. And Paul has been working with Jack's brilliant but kinda eccentric brother, William Joyce, on a literal time machine at some local uni. Because this is a video game, you can probably guess that the highly unauthorized time travel experiment goes catastrophically wrong. The machine malfunctions and fractures the timeline itself. As a result of this, Jack gets the ability to manipulate time. While Paul is sent forward in time and sees the end of the universe, then comes back with the ability to see different futures. And by the time Paul catches up to the present day, he's older and a ruthless CEO of a heavily armed corporation called Monarch Solutions. From there, the story becomes this high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Jack is actively trying to fix the fracture before time literally stops forever. While Paul is convinced that the end of time is inevitable, so he's using Monarch to build a massive bunker to survive it and will crush anyone who gets in his way. It's a classic sci-fi setup, but the execution is just so deeply compelling. The writing is sharp and the performances are top tier.
The library's ready to blow. Now?
The crazy thing about the story isn't just what happens, but how it's actually told. The game is broken up into 5 acts. At the end of each act, you reach what the game calls a junction. Now in these junctions, you don't actually play as Jack. Instead, you step into the shoes of the villain Paul. You get to use his abilities to look at 2 different timelines and get to choose how Monarch is gonna handle the current situation. Do you go the PR route and try to spin a tragedy to the media, or do you go the hardline route and just assassinate all the witnesses? These choices don't just change the game, they actually alter the live-action episode that plays right after the junction. And this is the elephant in the room whenever anyone brings up Quantum Break. Back in 2016, they made an insanely bold decision to embed these live-action episodes into the game. So, you play an act, you make your junction choice, and then you literally put your controller down and watch half an hour of a TV show.
Tied both his hands behind his back when he wasn't looking. And that, Brenner, is how you take Riverport under Monarch control.
It's fucking awesome.
To be honest, its reception was incredibly mixed, and I can completely understand why. Like imagine you're playing a game and you're fully engaged and then, boom, the game hard stops. You're now sitting on your couch watching a network quality sci-fi show. A lot of people absolutely hated this. If you're the kind of player who just wants to blast through a game fast, this completely derailed the momentum. But you know, looking back at it now, I kinda respect the sheer audacity of it. Like Remedy isn't a company that shies away from a tough challenge. The live-action show wasn't just a gimmick, it actually focused heavily on the secondary characters and the inner workings of that villainous corporation. While you were playing as Jack in the game, the TV show was fleshing out the bad guys, showing you the consequences of the choices you just made as Paul. Was it perfectly executed? No. Did it ruin the pacing? Mostly, yeah. But as someone who loves narrative experiences, sitting back and watching the consequences of my actions play out in live action was a really unique vibe that I actually kinda miss in today's homogenized gaming market.
What the fuck is that thing?
Okay, let's pivot and talk about the visuals because oh my god, we gotta talk about how gorgeous this game is. When it launched, it also debuted their proprietary Northlight engine. Even a decade later, I booted up on my PC, max out the settings, and I'm still genuinely blown away by how good it looks. The big visual hook here is the time stutters. When time fractures, the world just freezes and distorts. The devs created something insane here. Imagine walking into a room where a massive explosion has just been frozen in time. The visual fireworks on display during these set pieces are spectacular. We also have to give props to the character models. Even facial micro-expressions here were light years ahead of almost everything else in 2016. It bridges that gap between the game and the live-action show perfectly. Now, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Back in 2016, there was a massive controversy online about the game's resolution. On the Xbox One, it was so demanding with its deferred rendering and real-time global illumination that it simply couldn't handle it natively. So they rendered the game internally at 720p and upscaled it to 1080. People lost their minds over this. A 720p game in 2016? The forums were a mess. But today, with modern PCs and higher resolutions, the art style shines so incredibly bright. Alright, let's talk about how the game plays when it actually lets you play. If you just look at some screenshots, you might think it's just a generic cover-based third-person shooter. And if you try to play it like a cover shooter, you're gonna have a terrible time and gonna die a lot. It's actually a fast-paced action game that owes a lot more of its DNA to Remedy's own Max Payne franchise than anything else. You have an arsenal of time manipulation powers that operate on cooldown timers. Like you have Time Stop, which lets you throw a bubble of frozen time at a group of enemies. The brilliant part is that you can then unload an entire clip of your assault rifle into that frozen bubble. The bullets just hang there stacking up, and when the bubble finally shatters, all those bullets hit the target at the exact same time. It's actually really fun. Then you have Time Dodge, which lets you dash across the area. If you aim down immediately out of a time dodge, time slows down, giving you this Max Payne style bullet time moment to line up headshots. You also have a Time Shield that deflects incoming fire and heals you, and a Time Blast that's essentially a grenade that obliterates everything in its radius. And when you get into the rhythm of the combat, like chaining these abilities together, dodging behind a guy, freezing his buddy, throwing up a shield, and blasting a sniper off a balcony, the game actually feels incredible. And just when you think you're too overpowered, the game introduces strikers. These are elite Monarch soldiers who wear special Cronin harnesses, meaning they can stutter through time just like you. Suddenly, your abilities don't work on them, and they're warping across the room flanking you. It totally changes the dynamic and forces you to stay constantly on the move. However, the gameplay isn't perfect, nothing is. Because time is stuttering, you often have to navigate frozen environments, like jumping across falling debris or reversing time on a collapsed bridge to quickly run across. These sections feel sluggish and just completely unnecessary. Like it takes up way too much of the playtime, and the game has this habit of making you read dozens of logs and emails scattered around to understand the lore. There are so many different elements competing for your attention, the shooting, the reading, the platforming, the live action stuff, that they all kinda jostle each other out of the way. And again, the fact that you gotta watch a lengthy live action episode after a gameplay section, it gets jarring. I wish it had shorter live action stuff, maybe like 10 minutes, and way longer actual gameplay sections, then it would have been perfect. My main gripe isn't with the actual gameplay itself, because that's actually really good, but it's how less of it is there. So, how much of your actual time is it gonna take up? Well, compared to bloated 100-hour open-world RPGs we get flooded with today, Quantum Break is a remarkably tight experience. If you're just playing through on normal difficulty and doing a moderate amount of exploration, you're looking at roughly 9+ hours of playtime. And if you're a completionist who wants every single Chronon source to fully upgrade your powers and read every single lore document, it will probably take you closer to 11.5 hours. To be honest, its length is a huge point of contention. I feel like it tells the story it needs to tell, gives you some amazing set pieces, and gets out before it overstays its welcome. But I really wish it was a lot more gameplay and a lot less live action. Now, regarding the difficulty, it has some serious issues with its difficulty curve, at least for me. For about 95% of the game, whether you play on normal or hard, it's actually a fairly easy game once you understand how to spam your powers. But then you reach the final boss fight. Guys, not gonna lie, this is one of the most stupidly unbalanced difficulty spikes in the whole game. Or maybe I'm just bad at it, I don't know. So basically, you're trapped in a small arena. Paul is raining down these massive explosions that are instant one-hit kills. At the same time, the game spawns waves of elite striker enemies who are warping around you, and even snipers taking potshots at you. It's incredibly frustrating, at least for me it was. So you beat the game, you suffered through that awful fight with Paul, and the credits roll. What next? Well, I have some terrible news for you. Quantum Break has absolutely terrible replayability. First and foremost, there's no new game plus, and honestly that's incredibly dumb. This is a game where you spend the entire campaign hunting down these Chronon sources to upgrade your powers. By the time you're fully powered up and feel like an absolute unit, the game's over. The fact that you can't take a fully maxed out Jack and start a new campaign to just completely wreck the early game enemies is a missed opportunity. But wait, it gets worse. If you want to replay the game, I need to issue a massive warning right now. When you beat the game, it returns you to the main menu. Now if you click New Game, the game will instantly erase all of your progress. It wipes your timeline choices, it wipes your upgrades, and most infuriatingly, it wipes all of your hidden collectibles. And the real kicker? It provides absolutely no warning prompt the first time you do it. It just nukes your save file. Like if you missed one collectible in Act 1 and you wanted to grab it for an achievement, now you gotta collect every single one in the entire game all over again. Alright, we have covered the story, the TV show experiment, nice graphics, and the amazing combat. So what's the final verdict? How does Quantum Break truly hold up today? Personally speaking, I've only grown more fond of this game over the years. Yes, the pacing is totally weird when you have to stop playing to watch a TV show. And yes, that final boss fight makes me want to throw my keyboard through my monitor. But to be honest, they just don't make games like this anymore. A mid-tier 10-hour story-driven, heavily experimental action game is basically a dead breed in the AAA industry. Anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought of the game back in the day. As always, if you liked the video, hitting that like button helps me out a ton, and be sure to subscribe for more, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.